Greetings, everyone. Brad here with Mild-Mannered EDC. Hope you're all doing really well. Today we're going to talk Kershaw knives. That's right, Kershaw knives. Or as my buddy JD would say, Kershaw. You know, growing up here in the Pacific Northwest, Kershaw was the brand to have, especially when I was a kid, right? I mean, everybody wanted a Kershaw. They made the coolest knives, they made the best knives, et cetera, et cetera. They're based down in Portland, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I've just got a soft spot in my heart for Kershaw. Always will. They don't do everything right by any means. No knife company does, but they certainly make their foibles from time to time, and I have no problem calling those out. But when they do something right, I like to mention those too. And in fact, I'll show you this one. This one from my collection. This is a about a 25-year-old knife. This is the Kershaw Black Gulch. Interesting knife. I mean, it's got some wear on it, right? I mean, I carried it a lot when I was a kid, and I'm sure, you know, I guess I took better care of it than I thought I did. But yeah, this one has been in the collection a long time. I don't carry it too much anymore, but yeah, I've always been a fan of this knife, and it was one of my favorites when I was growing up. So there you go. Now, if you asked me a week or so ago, what's your favorite Kershaw? I probably would have pulled out two knives. The Kershaw Atmos, there you go, and the Kershaw Natrix. This is the medium-sized Natrix, or maybe it's the smaller one. I don't remember. But these, I've talked about certainly the Atmos before on this channel. Love this knife. I think for the money, 25 bucks or whatever this runs, 30 bucks. Really, really good knife. Great action, Sinkovich design. You know, just, yeah, one of my faves. Always has been. In fact, this is my go-to truck knife. I leave this in the truck for anything I might need. The Natrix, likewise, a knife I really enjoy. Comes in different sizes, as I mentioned. Just design overall, I still carry this pretty frequently. As you can see, that's copper, and it's pretty well patinaed at this point, and used and banged up and beat up. So, you know, anyways, these would have been my two favorites if you'd asked me a week and a half or so ago. But if you'd asked me just a day or so ago, or a couple days actually, I would have said,
the suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
This is the Kershaw Highball XL. And I'll just address the title right here. I think this is the best knife Kershaw is making at the moment. There it is, bold statement right out of the gate. Really, really impressed with this knife from Kershaw. Would like to see them do this more consistently with all of the knives they're putting out. This one is just really well done. Now, you may recall, there is an original Highball out there, right here. And I have reviewed this before. I reviewed this one on the channel, and I'll put a little thingy up there so you can click on that video if you want. But I liked this knife. It wasn't perfect, but I liked it, and I thought it was a good step forward for Kershaw. This one came out last year. I would have liked to have seen it, you know, I would have, at the time, I wanted them to maybe make a few improvements, but it was still a pretty darn good knife, and I enjoyed it enough to keep it around. I didn't carry it all that much as it turns out, just because a couple of those drawbacks, but I did still enjoy it. This one, though, not only did they made it a bit bigger, which was one of my primary complaints on the original version. I don't know if it's XL, but it's definitely bigger. But they made it better too. They just made this better. And so if a company is going to take an existing design, tweak it a bit based on customer feedback or any of those other things, one of those being it was a bit too small to handle, make it a little bit bigger, and also make it better, yeah, that's a win. And this is going to be a video explaining why I think this is a win and why this is such a good knife. Okay, so we're going to do a few specs on this, some size comparisons, then we'll get underway with the review. I do want to say thanks to everybody who subscribes to the channel and supports the channel. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me. And, you know, if you're new to the channel, just discovering, or if you've been watching for a while and just haven't hit that subscribe button, please go ahead and do so. We've got some fun stuff coming down the line here, and it would be great to have you as part of the Mild-Mannered family. So there you go. Thanks so much. All right. So before we go, though, I do want to say this is $55 knife. This is just hitting retailers now. I think that's a little bit high. I'd like to see this more in the $40 to $45 range, but you know, $55, it is what it is. But I bet if you waited a bit, it'll come down in price. And I think at that range, this is super competitive. At that 55, you know, it's up against some pretty high quality competitors. But that was the QSP Hawk, by the way. So you know, and Civivi and some other brands too, but. Yeah, I think this one though is holding its own in a lot of ways, and we'll talk through that. All right, so specs on this knife. You have a 3.3-inch blade. You have a blade thickness here of 0.12 inches. You got a handle length when it's closed up of 4.3 inches. And a handle thickness here of 0.41 inches, which is a bit narrower than I actually thought. This is a pretty narrow knife in terms of, yeah, so width. Overall, then, when it's all opened up tip to tail here, 7.6 inches and a weight of 3.8 ounces, which I have to say is better than I expected. I thought the original highball here was about 2.8, 2.9 ounces, I think. So, making this as a bigger version and only really growing the weight by about an ounce, I think is nice. And again, especially considering there's some stainless steel on this knife, right? So we'll talk about that when we get into scales and hardware. Speaking of which, let's do a couple of size comparisons, though, before we go into our classic mild-mannered review. You've seen these knives already. Kershaw Atmos, Kershaw Natrix. There you go. Here's a Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight. And how about a mild-mannered Swiss Army knife? So that's what you can see. Like I said, definitely I don't think an XL, but it is a larger version. And, what wouldn't be any fun to call it the Highball L, now would it? So I guess XL just sounds a bit cooler. So, all right. We'll do a classic mild-mannered review on this. When we do that, we'll talk about the blade, we'll talk action, scales and hardware, and then ergos and carry. So what do we have on this Kershaw Highball XL blade? We have a really nice bead-blasted clip point blade. Love me a clip point, especially those of you watching the channel for a while. You know I'm a big clip point fan. You do have a flat grind here in D2 steel. That's right, D2, not HCR 13 MOV. So very, very nice to see that. You've got some pretty pronounced fullers here, and we'll talk about that in action because that's how you open the knife. Some jimping here on the top, but other than the fuller, which is a bit sharper than I might otherwise expect. But again, I think that's because it is the primary way you open this knife. I'm not going to hit it too hard on that. Other than that, everything is well chamfered, well smoothed off, and apart from the cutting edge, isn't super sharp or anything like that. So they did a nice job there. And even the jimping, it's pretty muted, but it's still enough to give you some traction, which is nice. Now the grind is fine. It came pretty sharp. It's not the sharpest knife I've ever got out of the box, but it came sharp, and the grind is pretty decent on both sides, pretty even. They didn't quite nail the blade or the grind termination point here. It gets a little fat right towards the end where they didn't quite miss the plunge line. But it is what it is. But I would have liked to have seen that. That would have been nice to see him nail that. But there's a tiny bit of a smile here. Not the end of any worlds, and certainly something you could clean up with a sharpening, but yeah, just want to mention that. You do have the Kershaw logo there. And then you've got some markings here on this side as well. 720 being the model number. KAI is the Kershaw parent company, D2. And then you've got this in China right here. This is a Chinese-made knife. And then you've got this mystery logo, which I don't know what it is. I've seen it on a number of new Kershaws this year. I wish somebody would tell me what this is. I was talking with my buddy Big Red EDC about that. He said he knew, but then he didn't tell me. So if you know, put it down in the comments.
You may be able to help solve a mystery.
I would love to know what this weird little logo is out there. I thought, well, anyways, I'd love to know. So I've seen it on a number of new Kershaws this year. So it would be great to know what that actually is, or whose mark that represents. So there you go. So that's what we've got here with the blade. I think it's a very, very nice blade, and definitely an improvement from the much smaller blade that we had on the original. So let's talk action here, right? Oh yeah, look at this. Oh, and you know why this is so nice? It's not assisted. That's right, this is not an assisted knife from Kershaw.
Super duper! That's nice! Way to go! Neato, gang! Yes!
No speed safe here. Thank you, Kershaw. Also, if you can do this, why aren't you doing it with all of your knives? There's just no need for that speed safe. I know some people like it, but yeah, the vast majority seem to not. And I just think it's really nice to have. If you can do an action this nice, and it is nice, just do it. There's no need for that speed safe business. But at any rate, I digress perhaps a bit there. You can open this by a couple mechanisms, either the authoritative thumb opening there, or you can flick it out. Those are the two primary ways you're going to open this knife. Obviously no flipper tab or thumb studs. You can also do this, right? So if you want to kind of do that more subtle, you're in the lunchroom, whatever kind of a thing, yeah, there you go. So that's an option. But either way, because of the way this fuller is designed, and I talked about that a bit ago, right, with a pretty dramatic little ledge here for you to grab onto, yeah, it just is really easy to get the purchase and get that authoritative thwack out there. On top of that, look at that action. Look at that fall shot. Now, this is running on KVT ball bearings, which I think you can see in there. So caged ball bearings, essentially, which is nice. You do have a frame lock. This is a frame lock here with a over travel stop. It does not have a blade lock insert, or lock bar insert rather, but it does have a over travel stop, which is nice. And in fact, I think part of the benefit of this over travel stop, and part of the reason, is you don't run into any sort of lock bar pressure concerns. As you're holding this knife, because it is a flipper, or a flicker rather, you want to kind of get more purchase on it to make sure you get your fingers in there so you can do that, right? That can make things very susceptible to lock bar pressure in these type of designs. But by putting this in there, you've given yourself like an extra sort of landing pad for your fingers so that you can hold this very comfortably without applying any lock bar pressure. So I have not had any of that lock bar of death sort of experience where you try to flip it open, but you can't because it's just stuck because of the lock bar. And you've got fingers on the lock bar. So none of that at all. Locks up solid, about 40% there. No blade play, no blade rock at all. Centered, right on the money, has been since I got it, and I've been playing with this one quite a bit. So, you know, all in all, yeah, I mean, this is just, they really nailed it. It's got excellent action. It's smooth. It's running beautifully. It's even got that little bounce that I kind of like sometimes, right? When you, yeah. A lot to like here, a lot going on, some thoughtful details, just overall really, really good action, and definitely one I'm enjoying a lot. And I think if you like flipper or flicking your knives, rather, not flipper, right? Sorry, because it's not I guess I think of this sometimes as thumb flipping, but thumb flicking or finger flicking, yeah, this one's going to meet that sensation for you. So there you go. Okay, so action, blade is really good, action is good. Let's talk about scales and hardware. So what we got here is, and just as the original, stainless steel bead blasted scales here. You've got blue anodization there around the pivot, and then you've got this bluish same anodization here on the back end, and as well as that over travel stop, and then you've got black hardware in the other locations. You've got a nice stainless steel clip here. And you know, just all around pretty darn nice. This backspacer, which I do believe is some sort of plastic, so kind of on that, you know, maybe they could have done something a little different there. I don't think that's an FRN or anything like that, but I could be wrong. It just looks kind of plastic to me, but it does nice. It's fit well in there. It doesn't stick out. It's rounded nicely. Speaking of rounded, everything's rounded nicely. This is nicely bead blasted, so there just aren't any sharp edges, including in here where sometimes Kershaws have a want to leave a little bit of a sharp edge. None of that. So it's just, yeah, scales and hardware done really, really nicely, and I think pretty darn attractively as well. So there you go with that. All right, let's talk about Ergos and Carry. Couple of fun things with this. So the Ergos, very, very good. That was one of my biggest complaints about actually Ergos and Carry were my two biggest complaints on the original. The Ergos were good, but they were a bit small. It was just, you felt a little bit cramped in here. And for a knife that was, you know, meant to be, it was nice. It was cool. It was fine, but just a little bit bigger would have been nice. They did that here. The other thing was the clip. The original clip was not great. Certainly not deep carry, not super attractive, and a little stiff actually. So it wasn't a fantastic clip. Apart from the Ergos, which are now better because it's just bigger, the carry on this is much, much better. They've included this stainless steel deep carry pocket clip. Pretty darn deep carry. I mean, it's not super right up to the edge, but boy, we're talking millimeters at that point, and you know, not a whole bunch sticking out the top. But they did a really nice job with it. They countersunk the screws there, made them flush, flathead screws, so you got nothing sticking out there. They didn't recess this down into the stainless steel, which, you know, that would have been nice perhaps, but not the end of anything. And I think the fact that they went with the recessed screws internal, or at least the flush mounted screws, kind of takes care of that. This clip is ambidextrous as well, so you can flip it back to left or right tip-up carry. And for a knife that you open with just the fuller, that makes this a pretty darn ambi-friendly knife, right? So a lot to kind of like in terms of that. So, you know, overall, some significant improvements here. You got this nice canted, you know, they canted it as well. They didn't just run it straight down. So this definitely was thought out. Somebody thought about the design of this knife, and they thought about how to improve the original, and they did. They made it better. They made this knife a little bit bigger, and they made it a little bit better. And so for me, this definitely fills the or fulfills kind of why I made that statement in the title that this is the best Kershaw EDC knife currently being made. I mean, it just is, in my opinion, of course, but really, really like it. And if you if you want to pay the 55, go ahead. I did, but because I was interested enough. But, you know, maybe if you want to wait around, see if that price goes down or you get one on sale, I encourage you to pick one up if you're liking this kind of style and if you're a Kershaw fan, because I really think you won't be disappointed. This is just really, really well done. I wish Kershaw would do this on a lot of do these same things on a lot of their other knives, because they'd have a lot more winners on their hands, because they've got some good designs, but sometimes, you know, whatever with the speed safe or whatever wherever you want to go with that. But anyways, that's what we've got here with the Kershaw XL, Highball XL. Really do like this knife, my new favorite Kershaw, and thank you for watching. More than anything, stay safe out there, be mild-mannered to one another, and all the best.